just working on one of the technical things. I was trying to get this recording to work. But yeah, no, I really appreciate everyone's here, and thank you all very much for being here and contributing to the stream. I am, hey, how's it going, Electric Horse? Welcome to the stream. Good morning. Yeah, so basically I was trying to pull up, I'm basically looking for different games to draw from. But I thought for this week, maybe what we would try is, I got a suggestion for a big set of openings to take a look at. So, like, we have a, thank you, Electric Horse, it was good. Jen took me to a Smash bar, which I didn't even know was a thing, but it was actually really cool. And a lot of fun it's like a fun activity, and we went with like 5 or 6 friends, so it really was fun. Thank you for asking. Yeah, no, I didn't even know that was a thing that existed, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Anyways, so I was thinking this week maybe what we would try is someone sent me a message with like a big list of openings to take a look at. So I thought I might go through one of those openings each day. I was thinking the white side openings we could look at in the mornings, and then the black side openings we could look at in the evenings, and basically and just go over just basically give 15 minutes at the start of each lesson to a new opening each day. That's what I was thinking just in terms of idea. I mean, the rest of the lesson I think will be the same and focus on viewer games. Like, please keep sending your games. Please keep sending suggestions for ideas of lessons to give. But yeah, it was yeah, no, but I think I wanted to try this out and start off with opening theory each day. I'm good. Yeah, thank you, Tarash. Had a fun birthday night that Jen threw for me, and. Good question, Raymond. No, feel free to send anything. Honestly, the main differentiator between, I think, quick games and slower games has to do with the depth of the tactics that are played. Yeah, sure. Yeah, if you send it to Rush, I'll switch over to whichever game you send. Sure. Yeah, that works. No problem, Tarash. Yeah, so, yeah, good question, Raymond. Really feel free to send anything if you think anything's particularly instructive, or if you think there's anything that you'd really like to have reviewed for improvements. Those are the best games to send. But, honestly, every game is worth looking at. There's always interesting concepts, there's always interesting ways that the situation could change. And, if you hang a move on move 5, we'll do the opening theory for move 4 and take a deeper look into whatever opening is played. So really, don't worry about it, and whatever you would like to send, I will review on the stream. I'm really just looking for material for people to send, and it's really helpful and nice that you guys are interested. Solid positional counter to d4. Okay, sure, yeah. I mean, thank you, Tarash. Okay, cool. So your game, which was the fourth game here. Just want to make sure I have the right one, but I think I should. I'll just switch out right now. So you previously sent a game that had to do with the French defense, and then this one, this new one looks like it's out of the French defense as well. But okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. Great job, Jack. Good to hear. Good morning. But yeah, Queen's Indian is great. I mean, I play the Grunfeld, but you're looking for a more positional response. So yeah, sure, we can take a look at like maybe the Slav. Is what I would think of for that. But yeah, good suggestion, and I'll put you down for a slot for that Electric Horse. I can just tell you, based on these opening theory plans that I had, we're looking at Queen's Gambit declined on May 6th at 6:05 p.m. And we're looking at we're looking at General D4 D5 at 6:05 p.m. on the 5th. But I'll put in an extra line to specifically think about the positional considerations out of D4 D5. Yeah, I like the Slav. The Slav plays pretty well. Hey, good morning, Mystic. Thank you very much for joining the stream. Yeah, so I just figured, to start off this stream, I was thinking that we could take a look at the Rui Lopez. I basically play the Italian game. I don't play the Rui Lopez. I was thinking here, what we could look at for the Rui Lopez is maybe one. I wanted to just kind of look at the main lines. So knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, a6, bishop a4. We looked at a game not too long ago that had fourth move or third move d6. This is the Steinitz variation. And here the bishop can take c6 early, but overall I think this opening is a little bit too conservative for black. It's a6, and the immediate challenge of the bishop is I think objectively better, and offers black better chances. I mean, it's up to you, Monsieur. It's an interesting question. Hey, thank you very much for the follow, Dragon Cake. Thank you. But yeah, so good question, Monsieur. I guess I would say maybe Vienna game is interesting. I think it's playable at a pretty high level. Vienna game, e4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, d4. We've taken a look at that previously on this stream, and so I just wanted to say, just quickly go to Monsieur Onion's question. E4, E5, knight C3, knight F6, F4. And this move actually has one very clear resolution. So this Vienna game, I think, is something that you might want to change up at a higher level, since D5 gives black equality almost immediately. So this particular Vienna game, I think you might want to move away from. But other Vienna games, I think, are fine and playable at a high level. It's not the most challenging. You're not threatening the e5 pawn early, but here, knight f3, which is the best move, and white maintains his initiative, gets the challenge on the e5 pawn a little bit later. So I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the Vienna game. But one of the common lines in it, the Falkbeer Gambit, I think is successfully equalized by d5. So I would steer you away from specifically that one, Monsieur. Otherwise, I think you can keep playing Vienna game. But yeah, so I was interested in looking at the Rui Lopez in terms of opening theory. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, thanks, Monsieur. Thanks for the question. Please, yeah, feel free to ask questions. Like, feel free if there's anything that I explain unclearly or anything that would be helpful to have me explain differently. Like, please just say something and I'll go back over it. This is, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of complexity, and a lot of things in chess don't have a clear answer. So I give my best, I give my best answers to most questions, but feel free to keep asking questions, and please let me know if you'd like me to answer anything. Yeah, so here bishop b5, a6 is the main line. I was going to draw a little bit from a game that I played against an expert not too long ago. So I was playing the black side of this. Bishop b3, bishop c5, castles, queen f6. So this line is not a line that I would necessarily recommend. It's not a good positional line. It's a line that basically generates an attack on black's kingside as quickly as possible. Black's kingside structures can be attacked here. There are many Rui Lopez games in which black will try ideas like g5, g4, h5, h4, and get a win out of them. Queen f6 is kind of a blunt way to do this. I don't think there's really, I don't think this is necessarily the best idea. The most common move here is knight f6. But this is an opening theory that I've played over the board as black. Not necessarily something that I'd recommend, but actually something that's relatively playable at a fairly high level. But yeah, let's go over the main lines instead. b5, bishop b3, and then black has a few options. Main line is knight a5, immediately challenging this bishop. Castles, d6, not knight takes b3. d4, pawn takes, bishop b7, bishop d2, knight takes b3, and then either knight takes b3 or a takes b3, but you've basically exchanged the knight eventually for this white's better squared bishop on b3. Um, so if black plays d6, oh, so, good question. End of a circle. Yeah. So here is the main plan still cassivate and activate the rooks after. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you want to probably castle kingside. It's an old line. But let's take a look at this. This is the Steinitz defense. D4, bishop d7, knight c3, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, rook e1, and either black can castle here or play pawn takes d4, but then black castles. So yes, so this is a very overwhelmingly popular main line. So you do basically still castle and then move the rook to e8 in general. But it's very conservative. And, there's things that white can do to really disrupt black's pawn structure. So yeah, should you try to stop white from playing d4? I don't think you can, to be completely honest. I think, this pin makes, one of the real resources for black in preventing a white d4 is knight to c6 and knight to c6 and b5 basically. A6, b5, and then the bishop goes to b3, and then the knight on c6 is no longer pinned. So the resources to stop d4 are not that are not that great. It's a little bit different. Among other things, I think black is completely unable to prevent d4 on bishop takes c6. So here, bishop takes c6, and d4 is the main line, and d4 can't be prevented. So I think, yeah, d6 causes some problems with black's ability to prevent d4. I wouldn't say that it, if d4 can be prevented, it probably is good for black. But that opening in particular, basically, allows d4. Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think Tarash's idea is correct. This old, knight c6 Steinitz line does, I think, pretty much give away d4. I think you don't have really the same ability. I think you'd like to play it as black, but I think white can force it much more easily with that knight either pinned or traded off. So a6, b5, d6 is playable, but this, in this line especially, the d4 move is completely unpreventable. Yeah, so let's see. Good question, Monsieur. I actually don't know how to do that, to be completely honest. Is this I would like to figure out how to do that. Yeah, see, that did not work. I think I'm doing it wrong. Let's see. Is that this? Sorry about that. It's a good question, Monsieur. 3 dots on the top right. Okay. I don't think there's anything there. Yeah, let's just go with this today. Yeah, no, sorry, Monsieur. It's a good question, but we'll figure that out later. Thank you for asking. Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, awesome. No, but it's a good idea, and honestly, like, the technical stuff, I'm still definitely working on. So feel free to make suggestions. Honestly, I just learned how to record the streams yesterday, basically, or to create a local copy on the streams yesterday. So anything to kind of moves us forward, I'm happy with. Anyways, this bishop c5 line is pretty common. Let's see, bishop c5, castles, knight f6, c3, and d6. If d6 before knight f6, yeah, no, I mean, Ruy Lopez can often lead to early attacks on the king side, either for black or for white. But yeah, basically d6 is it gives white d4. So I think that's not. I think early d6 is problematic. Anyways, here, as long as we're looking at main lines, this is one that I'm pretty familiar with, so I sort of want to go through this today. There's just so much to cover, it's kind of tricky. So I'm gonna make my main focus on this line. A4, rook b8, a takes b5, a takes b5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, and d4. And the pawns are forking the bishop and knight, and either way, white basically gets back the piece and equalizes materially. This pawn is favorable to this pawn. This pawn can't advance to d5, and rook to e1 becomes a really common theme as an indirect way of defending this e4 pawn. So yeah, so main line here, knight f6, c3, d6, d4, bishop b6, a4, rook b8, a5, bishop a7, h3, castles, bishop e3, and here, basically white's in pretty good shape. He has a spatial advantage. His pieces are slightly better. This center, a common pawn center in the Ruy Lopez, is better for white than it is for black. And white will basically be able to maintain his advantage and and maintain his initiative and hopefully exert enough pressure on the king side to win this game. Knight d2 is probably coming up. Rook e1, bishop g5. They're all ideas. I like bishop g5 over bishop to e3 here. I think in terms of eval it's slightly worse, but I think that this threat for white makes a lot of sense. And even with the knight unable to go to d5, which would be a common supporting move here, moves like knight h4, queen f3, g4 are all possible, and all exert a lot of pressure on the black king side. So anyways, I think basically this is pretty solid. This is winning for white, and or not winning, but definitely like plus equals for white, and it's just basically a clean line that that leads to a solid position. It's a good opening, in my opinion. Ruy Lopez Italian game, very difficult to object to as the white side. So castles is pretty good. This is a relatively early castles for white. That's common to the Ruy Lopez position. D6, D3. I actually like this better as well. It's a good question. I guess it has some more complicated ideas relating to it's basically a more positional threat versus a tactical threat. With the Italian game, you get this attack on f7. The f7 attack is great, but I think at the highest level, like the b3 f7 diagonal is more easily handled than it is at the class level. So I think basically the positional idea of doubling black's black's pawns on the bishop file and the center play. Basically, the Ruy Lopez forces either a6, b5 for the bishop to be focused on the f7 diagonal, or it exerts a positional pressure on the knight on c6. So I think because of that, grandmasters figure that they're getting either a more positional advantage on the a4 e8 diagonal with the threat to double that knight, or if black doesn't want to allow that diagonal, he'll have to pay the price of a6, b5 to get the bishop back to the f7 diagonal. If black allows bishop g5, how does he deal with the knight as well as the queen? Good question. It's tricky. The most blunt solution on that is basically so say d3 here, d3 castles, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, and then g5. And this is a pretty difficult solution in my opinion. I mean, this basically opens up black's kingside to attack. Here the eval is giving black an advantage of minus 0.13. So black is technically winning this position, right? Well, yeah, here bishop e7. Yeah, you're right. So bishop e7 is probably a better resource than h6 here. But this is still a main line. Bishop h4, and g5 is more popular. It does look uncomfortable, but the thing about this is that it's actually a positive eval for black. Wait, I think I transposed it, but yeah. So here, knight f6, c3, castles, d3, or bishop g5, or d6, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, g5. And here, here knight takes g5 is possible, but without playing the d6 transposition. If you just go straight to d3 here, you actually still can be positive as black with the open king side. This is better for black. You know, g5 here. I mean, the black king is surprisingly safe here. It's tricky, but knight takes g5 certainly isn't playable. Bishop to g3, and you know it's equal. It's basically equal. A second ago, the engine was giving minus 0.13, but this is considered to be equal, and that's sort of the blunt, the blunt solution. So it basically, I would say, if bishop e7 is available, then play it, and if bishop e7 is not available, either because of d6 or other reason, basically generally because of d6 or it's not playable. Bishop could also be on b6 as a possibility, but d3 and bishop to g5, h6, bishop to h4, g5, bishop to g3 is a playable move in most of these situations. Yeah, no, it is, but at the end of the day, you need good defensive play to comfortably play. In order to comfortably play g5, you need to really be comfortable getting attacked. But just taking this position, I think comfortably looking at basically looking hard at the eval here. White is not up really. I mean, knight takes g5 is certainly worse, and bishop to g3 is equal. So there's a lot of practical compensation, and black will have to play resourceful tactical defense. Yeah, no. I mean, it's risky. This position. If you were to evaluate this position, you're at least my intuition gives me a sense that white would be up here, right? But not really. I mean, plus 0.05 is basically equality, and nothing else. That's funny. That's funny, Tarash. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's really a question of objective play versus practical compensation. That's where we are with that. But this is a playable resource in most situations as black. Black will need to be careful. Yeah, that is funny, Tarash. You have to ask Jen about that one.
What?
About the silly hat emote.
We need more followers so I can make more emotes.
Okay.
The word.
But yeah, thank you very much for the follow, Stuff Tank. Thank you for joining us on the stream. And Jen is just eating breakfast, I think. But it's considered. But yeah, so bishop g3 or knight takes g5, and either way, white is not worse or equality. This opening plays out fine, but that gives a sense of what defensive resources are available for black. Either bishop e7 or h6 g5, and they're both basically okay. Anyways, what else going on here? Bishop c5, castles, queen f6 is an interesting novelty, and great. Yeah, and either bishop to b7 or knight f6, and a more kind of conservative general play for white, and he's fine. D6, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, g5, bishop g3, and here black is basically better. But anyways, it's an interesting situation. People have been recommending, and Jen has been encouraging them that I should wear a silly hat on stream. We'll put that in the maybe pile, I think, for the moment. But
redeem with your channel point.
There are things that I would do on the stream. There are things that I would do to improve the stream first. Is my thinking on that. But yeah, Anyways, that's the Rui Lopez, or at least some lines in the Rui Lopez. If anyone wants to see more of the Rui Lopez, please, please recommend it, and we will go over it. There's lots of lines in the Rui Lopez. Can't possibly cover them all in 20-25 minutes, but I hope that's helpful. All right, Monsieur. Here's your game. You play this one as black, and I will get that loaded now. Here you go. Cool. Awesome. All right, so this is your game, Monsieur. Let's take a look. You're playing white here. Sorry. Okay. Knight c3, bishop c5, and this is yeah. So I actually played this game earlier today. This is a this is basically a Vienna game opening. So Monsieur was talking about the Vienna game. And I was, and I was interested in looking at lines for that. There's some pretty crazy attacks that can happen out of the Vienna game. It's not really the same as the Italian game in that way. So there are some things. I mean, like, I think isn't the whole Frankenstein Dracula variation, and also Queen G4 is a line in the Vienna game sometimes. But those openings, there's a number of different ways the Vienna games can be played. Some are good, some are less good, and it's definitely a playable opening. This is one with a very early knight a4, and basically, yeah. So there's a few different opportunities there, but thank you, Jack Mac. Knight a4, bishop b6, knight takes b6, a takes b6, and d3, and interesting. So bishop g4, bishop to g4, that would be interesting. Knight to bishop b6, knight takes b6, pawn takes b6, and white's a little bit better. Basically white's a little bit better here, but it's pretty much equal. So I think this probably is not the yeah, queen g4. Yeah, queen g4 is a hung queen, so But queen g4 actually is playable in some lines here. So like bishop c5, queen g4. This is actually a this is a pretty well established line. Max Lang defense, I guess. This gets really interesting. Knight g6, either queen g3 or queen f3 or knight d5. But pressure with knight f6. Yeah, so it's definitely fun, and it's interesting. So overall, I think knight a4. You're asking about lines in your Vienna game, or what you might want to change about it. I don't know a ton about the Vienna game. It's an opening that I haven't played. I've played the Italian game, but I've played as the black side against it. This is very early for knight a4 to be played. I think it's playable. But the main lines are like d3, knight f6, and potentially transposing it into the Italian game. I mean, here now, this is, I think, the Italian game, and you're in something pretty. You're back into kind of Guaco piano theory after knight c6. So yeah, so these types of transpositions are pretty popular. I would also look at so here either bishop c4 or knight f3. Let's take a look at a knight f3 line. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, and this again goes to Guaco piano. So looking at specifically Vienna game lines, which I think will be steered away from if we go with knight f3, knight c6. I think knight f3, knight c6. Okay, cool. Sounds good, Aphelion. Thank you for observing, and yeah, awesome. See you later. Yeah. So knight f3, knight c6. d3 are the moves that transpose it into the Italian game. So d3, knight f6, f4 is an idea. Knight c6, knight f3. Now it's King's Gambit declined. I mean, it really can be used for a lot of different types of transpositions. But, if you really are committed to the Vienna game, knight a4 is a way that you can keep it very comfortably the Vienna game for the rest of the game. This is very specific to the Vienna game. So d6, knight ge2, knight f3, d3, all options. d3 and knight f3 have transpositional possibilities. d3, maybe you can still steer it towards a really solid Vienna game theory. Now knight a4 is a bit more playable, or more commonly played. Bishop b4, c3, bishop a5, b4, bishop b6, knight takes b6, a takes b6. Now white, I think, is solidly better. I think this is this is pretty good for white. So I guess in terms of looking at this position, I want to just think about why is d3, or why is knight a4 held for the 5th move as opposed to the 4th move. So fair, it's an interesting question because knight a4 looks generally playable. After knight takes b6, white still maintains the initiative. It's playable. Knight a4 is playable. It's not the main line, but yeah. After looking at this, I think I don't see any problems. If the engine's giving you a good eval, I don't see any reason why that can't be played. Queen h5 is also getting looked at by the engine here. G6, queen f3, bishop b6, bishop takes e6, f takes d3. You wind up with about the same eval with knight a4. It's kind of tempting actually to play that just as a surprise weapon, right? Because if it's leading towards a situation in which your eval is relatively good, I don't see any reason not to do it. Like, this eval is plus 0.32 for queen h5, and if you can get queen h5 played and not incur a big either material or positional loss, you might as well take it and get the practical compensation for it. Evals are all positive for white here, even after queen h5. The odds that Scholars made is allowable here is pretty low, but after g6 you just play queen e2, and the bishop's out there, so it's not this queen on e2 is not disrupting any of white's development. It can just play knight f3, d3, bishop g5, and it even has the added benefit of having weakened the black king side with g6. G6 with the bishop on c5 is definitely a weakness. So I'm sort of pretty interested in this opening, actually, now having looked at it. Vienna game against d6. I'm really curious about queen h5. G6 is bad. This opens up that g6 square, and will make black's situation worse later when he castles kingside. But yeah, pretty interesting. G6, and then queen e2. Actually, queen d1 is the number one move, but let's say queen e2 because it feels good. In my eyes, it's better to connect this diagonal. Say knight c6, knight f3, bishop g4, and white can pretty much develop normally. Bishop b5 has to be played to prevent knight d4. Knight d4 would be very powerful in this situation, so it's better to not do that there. But anyways, here, knight a4 is, knight a4 is definitely an idea. Alternatives, queen h5. But let's keep going through this. White basically has an advantage, has maintained some initiative, somewhere between equality and plus equals, and we're just going to keep going here. d3, knight f6, knight f3, castles, bishop g5. And now, I like bishop g5. The engine saying that this is not the right response. I think it's fine. I don't see any problems for white out of this Vienna game at this point. Yeah, this all looks fine to me. c5 is a little bit... okay, so c5 I think is an interesting move. c5 I think has some negative characteristics for black. I think this pawn structure becomes backward after b5 and weaker. So like queen b3, and now you've got some pretty solid attacks on b6 coming. The engine probably wants you to delay it. I guess we can play through that line really quick. h3, bishop e6, bishop to b5. But this pawn structure is going to be a liability for the rest of the game, and I think that's where most of this eval calculation is coming from. White's seeing a really positive eval here. I think it's because of these two pawns basically being bad for black for the rest of the game. But yeah, anyways, going more on the main line of this game, King h8, g5, g4, bishop g6, and yeah, I'm liking all of this. Basically, I don't think White's really made many errors. I think this is pretty precise play. White's going to try to come up with a way of breaking open this king side, and Black successfully closes it a good amount here. Knight f5 looks like a great outpost for White. I would definitely push for that plan. That looks really solid in my mind. So does bishop takes f7, and then knight d5 instead though. So good plans on the table for White. This position, gives White a spatial advantage. These pawns are bad. There's no problems in White's development and no issues with king safety. I mean, h3 and g4 have been played, but this h3 and g4 have been played, but the king has very good safety here still. So no problems. Let's see. I think there might be some inefficiencies here. Bishop b5 is not a preferred move. I guess bishop b5, doesn't look like a bad move. It just doesn't look like a particularly purposeful move to me. I guess the idea behind bishop to b5 is to avoid trading this bishop on c4 for this bishop on f7, and that makes sense. I get that idea. It's White's good squared bishop and Black's bad squared bishop, so I understand not wanting to trade. But on the other hand, hey, thank you very much for the follow, Muddy Acre. Thank you for joining the stream. Yeah, so here, you have sort of a tough decision. But bishop to b5, after looking at it, I don't think bishop to b5 is purposeless. I think that bishop to b5 is actually makes sense. You don't want to trade the white squared bishop for the white squared bishop for Black. That makes sense. So I get the move. I do get it. The other thing that to consider here in terms of an improvement, I like knight e3. I think you can allow this bishop to be traded, and I think this, basically this open file for White is going to become very powerful. This could really cause Black some problems. So for that reason, I think allowing specifically bishop takes c4, which allows pawn takes bishop and then threats on this d6 square, I actually think that trade becomes good for White. So for that reason, I think bishop to b5, makes sense in that you don't want to trade your light squared bishop for Black's light squared bishop. But knight to e3, clearly improves the knight, and then on bishop takes c4, pawn takes c4, and this backwards pawn is going to be the target of attack for the rest of the game. This pawn will get won. I'm almost certain of it. Like this is too vulnerable. And also, knight d5 becomes an outpost, f5 becomes an outpost, but yeah, no. I mean, it's a good question. So let's see. So let's look at that knight e3. I think you were setting up the knight e3 routing, right? You see these outposts, f5 and d5. I think those are good outposts and good places for the knight to end up. And then you play from knight e1, knight c2, and then really this idea was based on the concept that you would move knight to e3 and f5 and d5. So this was a good maneuvering, and I don't think it's finished. I think that you should continue on with the knight e3 maneuvering. But I think it's a good idea, though, for sure. Bishop h2, bishop f7, and yeah, knight e3 here. So this is sort of interesting the way. I mean, knight e3 was a clear move. Like this, playing for these outposts is definitely something White wants to do. If the bishop moves off that file and the knight moves to e3, then this bishop e6 becomes a good defensive resource. So I think White is better off just trading the bishops, specifically because it's a good maneuvering. Look, this thing goes from knight to f1 to e1 to c2, And I think all of this makes sense because d5 and f5 are so valuable. And then yeah, knight e3 is the move. I would play it sooner though. Yeah, there's definitely a skill to that electric horse. I think something along the lines of like, there's a positional trainer by the same company that made CT-ART that's pretty good. But yeah, maneuvering and positional play is its own skill. I mean, people choose to play closed openings over, semi-open or open openings because they are good at maneuvering, and some people play open games because they're not as good at maneuvering as they are at tactics. So, I'm definitely in the latter group there, but yeah, I mean, there's a real skill to it. The same way there's a skill to strong and creative tactical play, there's a skill to positional maneuvering in closed games. But anyways, I think that here bishop to b5 is not necessary. I think d5 can. I think knight e3 and bishop takes c4 can be allowed. Yeah, no, of course. Thank you, Mario. Please keep sending games, and yeah, I hope that was helpful. Please just keep sending games. I'm always in need of more material. At this point, I'm booked for the rest of the day, but still have plenty of open slots for tomorrow. So, yeah, everyone just always keep that in mind. I'm always looking for more stuff. The more filled up the schedule gets, the more prep that I can do ahead of time. So, if anyone wants to send games by any method, feel free to, and I'll just add it to my spreadsheet and get to it. At this point, I'll get to it tomorrow. But yeah, so knight e3, knight to d8, awesome, cool. Yeah, thanks, Mario. But I'm happy to see anything that you play and happy to review. Super helpful for me. So yeah, so knight e3, but my main difference between, I think a main improvement here is even though bishop to b5 does make sense at some level to not trade off these bishops of, where you have the better colored bishop, black has the worse colored bishop, it can be allowed here with the specific idea of bishop takes c4, pawn takes c4, and threats on the d6 pawn. That's a well-formed plan for white that black is going to have a lot of difficulty dealing with. Exploiting a, basically doubled rooks on an open file against a backwards pawn is a very good play for white. That will turn out very well for white. Yeah, anyways, this is interesting. So I guess that would be my first improvement. In this specific case, allowing this trade, giving you the positional strength of doubled rooks on this open file, open pawn. That looks good for you. The way that this ended up playing out is unfortunate because you don't immediately get, the bishops are fine, but you don't immediately get the d5 and f5 outposts. Yeah, so these very good and natural d5 and f5 outposts, which you've now spent a number of moves trying to get your knight to, are not accessible anymore, unfortunately, because this bishop's covering both of them. If the bishops were traded off, then you would get those outposts, but because of basically because of this particular case, you are going to play for them, and now you'll get them after you trade off the bishops. So like I think in terms of coming up with a different strategic plan, this bishop and this bishop should have been basically you ended up trading them anyways, but I think this tempo and lost time was too big of a price to pay to avoid trading the bishops, and then at a later point you traded them anyways. But other than that's the first thing that that's the first improvement I could actually offer you. I think you're playing a pretty good game, and you're up about 3 points, so you're playing well. This is a good game, and white's in a good place here. Position is very closed. White's up in exchange, and the game ends. So yeah, black probably is resignable here. This doubled rooks on this backward pawn or isolated pawn became very valuable. And I think black can safely resign here. This position's going to fall apart quickly, and white's already up material. So yeah, great game. Very good game, Monsieur. I'll keep looking at this. But I think, well played. I mean, you won by 8 points at move 30. That's a good game. Um, this knight a4 is early. After looking at it, I don't really see any reason that it's a problem. I think it's basically fine. White still has an initiative here. But just for the sake of my knowledge, this knight a4 tends to come on the 5th move as opposed to the 4th move. Here it's a much more common move. I don't really see that much of a difference, to be completely honest. I think after looking at it, both are fine. But just for the record, that this knight a4 tends to come on move 5 and not move 4. But anyways, it transposes basically out the same. This I thought all of this play was tactically good and made sense. This position gets very closed because I think black defends fairly resourcefully here too. And then really the only real improvement that I can offer you on this game is the concept behind this bishop to b5 move. I think was a little bit inefficient. At the end of the day, trading this bishop takes c4, pawn takes c4 is actually a positive for white. And for that reason, I think you can safely allow it and then just move your other pieces. You really want these outposts, d5, f5. You've moved your knight 3 times in order to get them, and I think that was a good plan. I think that was definitely worth spending that tempo to get those outposts, because these, the knight will become extremely powerful on these squares. This will really be good for white. So here I would say, yeah, knight e3, and white is in good shape. But this evaluating this overall trade is I think that basically this can be recognized as a favorable structure. So for that reason, I think bishop b5 is not the most efficient move there. Knight e3, bishop takes c4, pawn takes c4. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, Tarash. I switched out your game for the one from the one that you sent. I think it's 2 games from now. Or no, wait. Yeah, Tarash's game is number 4. But yeah, if you have another one for tomorrow, Tarash, I'll add that to the list too. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, no, please send, and I'll add it for tomorrow. And anyone else, feel free to send any games. We have tons of open slots in the next week, so always feel free to send everything. And there's no every game has instructional points to it, so happy to go over anything. Cool. Thanks, Tarash. I am putting this in for tomorrow's 10 a.m. stream, yeah, it'll be the number 4 game in tomorrow's 10 a.m. stream. Thank you for sending that, Tarash, and feel free, anyone else, if you want to send material for tomorrow. But thank you. Yeah, no, it's in there. It'll be we'll look at it tomorrow 100%. But yeah, so just in terms of takeaways from this game, this evaluation is this. I think this bishop takes bishop on c4 can be evaluated as a positive for white. And I think with that in mind, I don't think bishop b5 should be played. You end up trading the bishops off anyways, so developing the knight a little bit more quickly, I'm sure, doesn't hurt. That said, you're in great shape. By the time all this trades off, you're up 3 points, and you win an exchange and kind of just you can have a pretty calm win after that. Great playing. Great game, and yeah, no, thank you very much for showing it to me. So the 2 takeaways: knight a4 is generally played on move 5 instead of move 4. Whether or not to do it that way is up to you. Openings are style thing. But I think opening this file with this rook accessible file onto this backwards pawn is a good thing for white here. And in that context, I think bishop b5 is not the most efficient play. But still, overall, excellent play for white, and a solid win. Very few errors there. So yeah, thank you very much for sending that, Monsieur, and please feel free to keep sending games in the future. This one was really interesting and very instructive, so thank you very much for sending it. All right, on to the next game. This one is from Reddit, and yeah, I'm always selling people on tactics, as Mario says. Tactics are extremely important in chess. More and more important. Basically at the club level. But at every level, they're very important to get right. They just become less of a differentiator at master level, but they still need to be excellent. Yeah, it's excellent, Monsieur. Very well played. Yeah, absolutely good. Good playing, and keep playing. Very strong for a strong game at any with any amount of time having learned chess. All right, this is Mystic Wizard's game, and I will take this from the black side here. E4, C5, knight F3, D6, and bishop E2, knight F6, D3. And this is kind of interesting. I mean, White's played a very closed Sicilian here. It sort of looks like he's playing King's Indian attack against the Sicilian. Hey, good morning, Kira. Yeah, no. So I think Kiro's got a okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, Trash. It's in for tomorrow, and your game is for today is up next as well. Yeah. So basically, this is sent for Mystic Wizard, and let's take a look at it. So E4, C5, knight F3, D6. This is a relatively common opening. This is a Sicilian defense with D6. Yeah, so Tarash has one for the 4th slot today and one for the 4th slot tomorrow. And anyone else, feel free. We have plenty of open slots for tomorrow. We'll get to your games for sure tomorrow if you send them now. So this is a common Sicilian. Most common by far, about a 80% choice is D4. Morning, Tarash's game is in for morning. Yeah, of course, Kiro. You guys don't even have to send. I suggest you guys send games if it's helpful for you to review. But if you guys want me to study like a particular opening or end game or anything, I'm super happy to do that too. I mean, these, in my mind, these are lessons for you guys. I want to make the lessons free and available. And if you have anything that you want to see in terms of chess lesson, I'm happy to do it. So Grandmaster games are cool. Opening theory is cool. Endgame theory is cool. Really, whatever you guys are interested in, I'm happy to make part of the hour-and-a-half stream. Yeah, no, totally. So feel free, Kiro. Definitely send over whatever you'd like. Good question. Yes, I do, but I would have to study. I could do a great bishop and knight. One other thing about bishop and knight is that it's been a long time since I've looked at it, but I think there are good resources already available for bishop and knight specifically. I can try to find a good stream for you, but I bet it's already been done. That said, it wouldn't hurt for me to look at it again. All right, I'll consider doing a bishop and knight endgame, because at one point I really did know how to do that very consistently. There was an old program called US Chess Live that basically had a really good trainer for king versus king, bishop, and knight, and I learned it on there really well at one point. Now it's 15 years later, so I basically would have to look at it again, but. That's a good question. I will add that on the thing. Cool. Yeah. Anyways, D4, pawn takes D4, knight takes D4, knight F6, knight C3, and the Sicilian has basically gone into an open line. This is a sideline, not what happened in the game. What happens here is pretty interesting. Yeah, I think there are great bishop and knight resources. It would take me. I mean, I wouldn't want to exaggerate my skill. It would take me like it would take me a bit to remember exactly how to do it. I mean, I know that you need to force the king into the bishop that's in the in the right corner, or it needs to be you force the king into the same color that the bishop is. But beyond that, it would take me a minute to remember the tactic. There's like that. I think it's like an ice cream cone tactic, right? Is the concept that everyone uses, the sort of like this type of structure. But anyways, it's yeah, no, I can check it out. I should relearn that myself, or refresh it at least. So interesting idea, Kiro. I'll add it to my list of things to think about. Okay, so White's playing really conservative here against the Sicilian. I bet we're already in sort of more limited opening theory here. D3, G6, Bishop G5, Bishop G7, and this is really a very kind of closed Sicilian game. This bishop looks strong on this diagonal. White's development is a little bit restricted. Knight to C6, C3, Knight C6, castles, H6, and yeah, this is an interesting setup. Black is in good shape. White's never really challenged him, so looking at this, I'm kind of curious to see when the eval shifts to black. This is actually later than I would have thought. Like, I would think we'd already be slightly better for black here, because White is playing unchallenging moves. But I guess it's here, really, where the eval flips. Black's just going to develop normally, but White's not challenging black in the center. White had the opportunity to basically be the better player in the center here, and he didn't really take it. So here, knight c3, knight to c6, and black's center control is good, and his spatial control is good. He can also play d5 potentially, and really cements center control. Pawn takes d5, queen takes d5, and black is in a good place. Interesting. Yeah. So let's keep going on the game. Black's already better by this point because White has made his not sufficiently challenged in the center. The closed Sicilian often has White challenging less in the center because by definition d4 isn't played. But this seems like underdevelopment and sort of basically more closed developing position for White than White should have here. BND2, knight c6, h3, d5, e5, and now Black's going to start to try tactical play. He's in the position where White basically is, where he's got the initiative, and he needs to turn the initiative into a solid advantage. Knight g4 is probably the best plan here. It threatens the e5 pawn, but here I think basically Black will be in a good place. So knight g4, knight b3, and then either knight takes d5 maybe, gets the material immediately. Although the engine figures that you're better off defending this c5 pawn and leaving the take on e5 for a few moves later. D4, c4, knight c5, f6. This is, yeah, I'm just reading the engine lines. E takes f6, E takes f6, but the b2 pawn is hanging, and I think it's still probably too difficult for Black to take it. But on a move like bishop f4, I begin to wonder if queen takes b2 is playable. I guess here, White plays h3. Anyways. This seems basically good for Black. White has played just an unchallenging opening. With d4 there have been very few moves prompted by Black. Black has just been able to sort of develop comfortably and move any tough decisions to when his pieces are well developed. D5, knight to e5, pawn takes, f6. And yeah, this looks pretty good. I guess maybe this e2 point was sort of not as good as it could have been, but this yeah, this basically threats on e2 I think are not super valuable. Standard moves with like queen b6 threatening the b2 pawn, f5 coming with threats on d4. Very traditional play I think is good for black here. Anyways, queen c7 and white gets to play bishop to g3, a move that he already wanted to play. Like, look, basically, okay. So here's one move that I think black can definitely improve on. Queen c7 allows bishop to g3 to be played with a threat on the queen, which must be responded to. That I think is an error. The bishop here is not really a problem for white or for black. It does pin this f6 pawn, but beyond pinning this f6 pawn, the bishop on h4 provides white with no real benefit. This diagonal, this long diagonal, is actually much better here. Being on bishop g3, the bishop controls a long diagonal and has no immediate way of being attacked. I mean, it's a pretty good outpost. So basically playing a move that allows white to play a move that he probably already wanted to play with a threat that black must respond to is a loss of time. So queen c7, bishop g3, queen e7, castles, rook e8, rook e1, and here basically white is better. Seizing this, there's a 1.5 point eval swing. Queen c7 allowing bishop g3, which is what white already wanted to play, versus g5, bishop to g3, and f5. F5 here. Basically this is a 2-point advantage on the eval for black. A better option. But from an instructive perspective, queen to c7 is bad for the fundamental reason that it moves the bishop to the g file with the threat. So a move that would have taken white a tempo to do now takes him no tempo to do, because it is made with an immediate threat that must be dealt with for black. It's like white, the queen goes here, and then the white basically gets to go again. So this is an extra tempo. I hope that's somewhat helpful. I mean, other things in this game, I think black's playing a pretty good game. I mean, black's up a pawn and a half, and black, so way more than equalized. And this move, it moves the bishop to the right diagonal anyways. So for that reason, I think it's not that great. I mean, tempo is worth varying amounts in varying positions. The main goal is to never waste tempo, right? I mean, that would be an ideal world. In terms of is it as immediately problematic, it's probably, losses of tempo probably are in general less problematic in closed positions. There's fewer things that can go immediately wrong in a closed position than in an open, tactically complicated one. Like one move of development will, one wasted tempo will be bad in a in a position where you're trying to make the most out of your middle game closed maneuvering. But I guess it could be like deadly in a situation in which you're trying to do tactically resourceful defensive moves and your opponent is attacking you. That's what I would say on that topic, Monsieur. It's interesting. So it's a good question, Monsieur. It's tempo is always important. You never want to lose tempo, but I think it's less of a catastrophe to blow a tempo in a in a position where each side is still 10 moves away from coming up with a breaking attack. That I think is true. But yeah, so queen c7 it loses that time. So I think here, g5 is getting recommended by the engine. That looks tactically complicated. The really straightforward move is just rook e8. This improves your rook and puts a pin on this bishop. Potentially looking for e2 as an attacking square, but I think that as a general thought will be refuted reasonably easily. So anyways, that's that's better. Queen e7, castles, and then queen f8, knight b3. White is in pretty good shape here. That that you know, that tempo really did hurt. And then queen e7 is not really as threatening as queen to b6. Queen to b6 makes a defined attack on b2 and d4, you know, queen to b6 makes an attack on b2 and d4, but threats on e2 are you know, they're just not going to go through. So there's not much. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, no, thanks, Tarash. Definitely, yeah, feel free to look at that endgame. I mean, you know, it's sort of, I always, bishop and knight is sort of one of the ones where I'm like, you know, it only happens once out of every 10,000 games anyways. And it's like one of those things that you can teach and like have it be like well defined. But I don't think it's actually that practically helpful. It feels like one of those things, like, you know, it's like learning like trigonometry or something that, you know, trigonometry as an English student or something like that. It's sort of like, you know, it's great to know and definitely know it, but it feels like it's one of those things that people focus on as something that they can teach because it's teachable. And it's sort of not that practically useful. I've only had, you know, I've played many games, and I've probably only had bishop and knight come up once, maybe, if at all. Anyways, it's not where I would spend the most time. You know, at the end of the day, it's really interesting, and I totally own not, you know, being super, you know, refreshed on it. Although I did know it at one point. I've probably played one game out of it in, I probably one out of every 10,000 games, or maybe less. I don't know. You know, it's just not I don't feel like it's a good return on time, but it is something where you can definitively say you know. Yeah, but you know, at the same time, how often is it gonna happen, right? It's just it's worth learning, but I don't know. I guess it's just not where I would be focused on as a someone learning or trying to improve. It feels great to know it. But in terms of practical value, limited. Anyways, if anyone can send, all right, I'll make a different bet. If anyone can send me a game from the last month that ended in bishop and knight versus king, I will give you a full shout out for that, and think about it. Okay. In a game that you played, if anyone can send from a game that they've played in the last month that has ended in king, bishop, and knight versus king, that was not intentionally trying to get into that. Yeah, no, please do. I would like to see that. A game that you played in the last month that came down to king, bishop, and knight versus king. Between a month and today. Please PM me. I'm actually super curious about this. I think it's just one of those things. It's like everyone spends time teaching it, and it comes up once out of every 10,000 games. It's just not that valuable, you know. I wouldn't spend. I think it's wonderful to know, and it's wonderful and very pretty to know, but I don't think it's that practically valuable. And as someone trying to improve, I think you want to focus on the most valuable things, the best returns on your time. So I'll make that challenge. If anyone can send a game that they played in the last month that, you know, between the last month and between today that ended in king, bishop, knight versus king, I will give you a full shout out and completely acknowledge that it has some practical value. It's an open idea, but I'm just I don't know. Feel free to learn it. Like, feel free to learn it. I don't want to. I don't know it super well, and I don't think that it's that practical, to be honest. But it's interesting that it came up as a topic. So, please let me know. I'm super interested in losing that one. I'm always interested in learning or you know, having my you know, frame of reference changed. But well, no. I'm saying between a month ago and today, not counting today. You could contrive one today, I'm sure, but I am saying between a month ago and today in a game that you have played, I will be very impressed if you can find one, and we'll fully acknowledge it. Anyways, thank you very much, Vert and Trey. Thank you both very much for joining the stream and for following. I really appreciate it. But yeah, so you know, anyways, really, I think it's a really interesting experiment, among other things. But I will acknowledge its practical value if anyone can send me one that happened before this stream, and a month within the last month. Thank you very much, S. Parkel, for the follow. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks all. Anyways, okay, cool. Let's get back to this game because that was interesting and no limitations. A game that you have played between a month ago and today before this stream. That seems fair. If it's practical, it should be coming up within that constraint. Anyways, let's keep looking. Knight c6, a3, d5, knight e5, knight g4, d4, pawn takes, knight takes, and pawn takes. Queen c7, and this is really the move that I would evaluate as being problematic. I think that's honestly, dude, I think I've given a very generous window. A game that you have played between a month ago and today before I came out with this challenge. It's not a super, you know, how many games have you played? Like 1,000, 100? I mean, many. Between all of us? I mean, that's a lot of, that's a lot of, you know, that's a lot of games that I'm working with, right? I'm not gonna give him a year. I'll give him a month. You know, that's my challenge. It's fair, and I will completely. If any of you have played a game like that in the last month, I will fully acknowledge it and you know, recognize that it's practical. Anyways. I just think it's one of those things. It's a very misfocused. It's just not a good focus. I think teachers point to it and they say, "Oh, well, I taught you this." It's like, yeah, okay, but you know, it's a very teachable thing, but it's not very useful. So that's why I think, you know, I think that I'm much more interested in spending practical time on things that come up. I think it's just like a parlor trick, basically. It's helpful very occasionally. Anyways, let's get back to this. Okay. Sorry to get so diverted. That's one of those topics where I actually have an opinion, and when I have opinions, that's dangerous. But bishop g3 refutes queen c7. So I think there are more efficient ways for you to play this. Either queen to b6. Or is where the queen, you know, naturally ends up anyways, or a straightforward developing move like bishop e8. Yeah, interesting. Knight h6, bishop to d3, bishop to g4, bishop to h3. I am being nice. Anyways, this bishop takes f3, pawn takes f3, f5, queen e6, queen f7, knight takes, rook e1, and black is basically working, and you know, and basically black is in good shape. The d4 pawn is very vulnerable, and king f8, and yeah, basically, I think this is, you know, this is pretty good. Black can sort of kind of maneuver into this, the end of this game, and be in a good place. Rook e8, rook d8, I think are both, you know, good, you know, basically good, you know, good moves that sort of improve the rook. The only piece here that's not active is this rook, and you know, with this rook inactive, you know, this offers a very clear piece that black can improve, and improving pieces is extremely important. Sorry guys. Yeah, that's one of those ones, man.
See, this is why we never fight,
I
because I don't have.
I'm just no. Honestly, I'm just bitter. I'm just bitter because I'm not sure I could do it today if someone asked me to do it. I think I learned it at one point when I was a teenager and have not revisited the theory for it at all. I'm pretty sure if you set it up on a board today, I might be able to muscle it, but I'm pretty sure I'm not sure I could do it on the first try, to be completely honest. I just don't think I haven't put the time in on that in 15 years. So I'll own that my opinion is influenced by what is probably the inability to do it on my first try. Anyways, just gonna own that. But it does. Yeah, if anyone wants to get a drawn position against me, I recommend trading into bishop and knight versus king, and I bet it will still be difficult to make that happen. But anyways, you're right. I'm just bitter because I don't think I could do it well on the first time. Okay. So black is up here and winning. Let's just go. I got distracted by this one, so I'm gonna go back and let's go back. So here, black is good, and I think everything. Thank you very much for the follow, Chess Lover. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining the stream. D5, knight e5, d4, pawn takes d4, pawn takes d4, f6, f6, and here everything's good. Black has played solidly, made no positional errors. The only error that I've seen so far from black this game was playing queen c7, which gets immediately refuted by a move that improves white's position. That's my takeaway on that. Let's look. Rook e8 is a straightforward developing move and probably an improvement. Anyways, castles, rook e8, rook e1, queen f8, and yeah, this diagonal is very powerful for the white bishop. Let's see if there's ways that black can sort of come back on this. But rook takes e1, queen takes e1, bishop takes. And this, I think, I think this was actually a really good tactic for black. Doubling these f-pawns is going to cause an endgame liability. This I think is going to be difficult for white to handle. Doubling and isolating these pawns, now white has 4 pawn islands. This is going to be pretty tricky, I think, for black to deal with. Rook e8, or for white to deal with. Rook e8, queen f7, holding the b7 pawn, and interesting. F5, queen e6, queen f7, queen takes, knight takes. Black is better. Even with the bishop pair, black is better. I think black basically did a really good maneuver in order to. I want to just give full time to this maneuver. So, black is basically down here. This bishop pair has become more valuable, and here knight b3, knight h6, bishop to d3, bishop to g4, and then rook takes e1, queen takes e1. Good tactic. Doubling these pawns was really an error for white. White shouldn't have allowed these pawns to get doubled. I guess the move that caused that to be possible was allowing rook takes e1. If rook takes e8 here, rook takes e8, and black gets this file. But I still think this file is worth less than a. I still think this file is less than is less, giving black this file is less bad for white than h3, bishop takes f3. Here h3 now, bishop takes f3 doesn't do much. Bishop h5, runs the risk of facing into g4, and this is hey Anil, thank you very much for the follow. Thank you. So bishop h5 and white has white has no major problems, and a bishop pair. So anyways, I think black is good. Knight takes, rook e1, king h8. Hi Shrey, welcome to the stream. Bishop takes. And then, yeah, so you know, here basically the pawn structure is so bad that even in an open position, yes, I am playing in that tournament, Kira. Should be, yeah, should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, so a6 and then either bishop a4 or bishop to d3. But black's up a pawn here, and black's up a pawn with a better pawn structure. So that makes up for the bishop pair versus the bishop and knight. This is Mystic Wizards game. I think you played pretty well. Thanks guys. No, I'm really looking forward to it. Should be fun. So yeah, knight takes, king g2, knight f7, rook d1, and here basically I think this is an error. Yeah, no, that's really only the second error I think from black this game. I think black's played pretty well. Knight c6 and the d3 pawn holds. For a few reasons, I think this is a little bit complicated. I mean, among other things, this pin on d8 is thank you, Jen.
There's an important question about your emoji.
Jen draws the emotes.
No, not that one. It was Bert Witch was asking about your angry emoji in Puzzle Rush.
Check it out. Nah, it's all good, Monsieur. No worries. I don't think I have a high enough profile, to be honest. But yeah, so anyways, so here I think was just, this one it's just a focus-related misstep. I think with knight c6 you're in good shape. It's a bishop and knight, bishop versus knight, so trading the bishops off worked well for you there. Yeah, I think you're in a pretty good place with this. Thank you very much for the follow, Leaf. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think it's great to learn. I question how practical it is. Let's see. Okay, cool. But yeah, so just going from front to back on this game because we've been on it for a while. I think black plays really well. Gets basically a 1.5 pawn opening. And queen c7, bishop g3 is sort of the misstep. Queen c7, I understand, tries to allocate the queen to the h2 square, but I think queen b6 is a better idea, or queen e7. But either of those is better than the in-between move where the bishop gets to move to g3 for free. So that's the first. If that's the first, that's the first improvement that I think for black. I play the Italian game Spark or South Park or however. It's yeah. I play the Italian game. It works pretty well and is solid. But black is playing well. Good idea, doubling the pawns on f3. This gives black some great chances, and here, you know, I think you do a good job trading. I think trading off the bishop fundamentally improves your endgame here, and once you turn it into a bishop and knight, a bishop versus knight endgame as opposed to a bishop and knight versus bishop pair endgame, I think that's good for you. The second error of the game is one that I think is just an error. I think there's not really much of a fundamental reason behind it. I think f4, knight c6 is probably the best strategy. Knight d7 is not really that. You know, knight d7 I think is not really that valuable. You know, I think knight d7 basically hangs the d6 pawn. So knight to c6 I think is an improvement. So here, you know, I think black's comfortably better. Ideas might be b5, rook to d4 to threaten this f4 pawn potentially. I mean, realistically, this pawn's probably going to have to get traded off at some point. But hopefully black can hold off that trade to a point where you know, black can hold off that trade until he will get a good compensation for it. So probably two pawns or a pawn in a solid position in exchange for this pawn. That's the correct time for black to trade. Also, if black wants to trade off his knight for that bishop, or can find a way to trade off his knight for that bishop, that will improve his endgame position. But even if the position goes like something along the lines of, say, h4, knight, just thinking, knight here, bishop a2, rook d4, bishop takes, knight here, bishop there. This is, yeah, I mean, well, that hangs the rook. Okay, but anyways, this move, I think, is this is just an error. The main thematic concepts: hold on to the d3 pawn until you can trade it for a better pawn, or a pawn and a half, or whatever, and try to trade your knight for the bishop. Get your king more active, and with those three principles, I think you can win this game. But knight d7 is just a slip, and they happen to all of us. But I think after that, you're pretty much, it was an error for black. Black still wins, which is great, or black gets a winning position, which is great. But yeah, the trade, I think knight d7 was a pretty crucial error. But anyways, thank you very much for the game, Mystic Wizard, and please keep sending them my way. Really appreciate it, and yeah, I think those are the pieces that I would look to. Make sure you're careful about allowing threats to be made with tempo against your queen. It definitely allowed some benefit to white in this situation. Yeah, S-Park, please send in games, and I'll look at them. We have plenty of open slots for tomorrow, so if any wants to send any games, including you, like, please do, and we'll look at them definitely tomorrow, possibly in the afternoon, but maybe in the morning. But yeah, for sure. Thank you very much, S-Park. Cool. All right, so now we've got Tarash's game. Thank you for sending it, Tarash. Very interested in seeing this. I think there's some great theory here, and yeah, good French defense. I actually haven't seen this game because you switched it out, but I am very curious to see how this goes. Oops. And just so I know, Tarash, is this an instructive game, or is this interesting? Cool. All right, thanks, Amet. Amet, you are in for tomorrow at and I'll just tell you the time. Amet's game is in for tomorrow during the 10 a.m. stream. Thank you very much for setting it, Amet. And if anyone else has any, we have one more spot on the 10 a.m. stream, and then I'm going to start filling up the 6 p.m. stream, or the 6:05 p.m. stream. But plenty of open slots if anyone wants to take one. Good opportunity. Yeah. So here, this is Tarash's game. Tarash has sent some excellent opening theory. A lot of it I didn't know and was very impressed by. So I'm very curious to see more of this. Okay, so your opponent's playing white, Tarash is playing black. So let's take it from black's perspective. Okay, cool, sounds good. C5, C3. Instead of, well, actually, that's a good question. Electric. The reason that I'm thinking, or the reason why it was 6:05 is because I had a class that was running from noon to 6 p.m. Eastern time every day, or every weekday. So because I was ending class at 6 and sometimes class went over, I wanted to make the class 6:05 instead of 6. But now I don't have that class, or I finished that class. So I'm thinking a little bit about scheduling as well right now. But good question for sure, Electric Horse. Okay, C5, C3, and yeah, that's an idea. Jen is hoping for times Jen is hoping for better times, I think.
I'm just saying you can adjust now.
Yeah.
So if they want other times.
Yeah.
With the distinction that if it goes till 8 p.m., Jen gets angry.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm thinking about different scheduling times. Yeah, so C5, C3, and yeah, I mean the main French concept is basically the idea of C5, C3 is basically the main concept in the French is whether or not white can maintain these pawns on D4 and E5. This basically set up if white can hold this pawn structure, he will be ahead. If black can get rid of this pawn structure or get rid of one of the pawns from this pawn structure, black will be equal or ahead. So white wants to maintain, black wants to undermine it. Anyways, knight e7, bishop g5, queen b6, bishop takes e7, bishop takes e7, and black is better. This was not a good trade for white. The French does value the knights more than some openings. This is a place where where knights are relatively more important to bishops than they generally are because it's closed. But I think these two moves basically were not a great strategy for white. The main moves here are things like knight to f3, knight to a3 is interestingly playable, bishop to d3 with the idea of bishop to d2 on c4, which is risking an overextension by black. But bishop to g5, queen to b6, bishop takes, and there's been some unfavorable trading for black. Basically here, black has an advantage of 1.4. The position is opening up, and in particular, I think this trade is something that basically should never be done by white. I'm saying this overly broadly, but like d takes c5 is actually not good. D takes c5 is very rarely good for white in the French. Almost never. I can't think of a French in which d takes c5 benefits white. This comes, basically associated with this point. D4 and E5 are very, lead to a win if they can be maintained. So voluntarily giving up one of these pawns is almost always bad for white. Let's see. Yeah, Italian game. I play Italian game as white. That's my preferred opening. It's solid and tactical. Yeah, so bishop c5, and then either queen c2 or bishop d7, knight f3, bishop to b5. Here, black's basically got the advantage. I think offering this trade probably isn't the best idea for black. Here, it's a pawn and a half, good for black. Queen c2, bishop d7, knight f3, and then knight c6, the more straightforward developing move, is better. I don't think black necessarily wants to simplify here. I think black is actually winning. This e5 pawn, will need pieces to attack it. E5 poses a major weakness for white. So moves like knight c6, queen c7, and the e5 pawn is getting threatened. So here, bishop c5, queen c2, bishop d7, knight f3, bishop to b5, bishop to e2, bishop takes, queen takes. Basically, black is still winning, but I don't think by as much as if he advances normally and attacks this e5 pawn. I think these lead to better evals. White will probably end up having to bring his queen over if black attacks with queen c7. But black has effectively neutralized the white center, and if the white center is neutralized, then basically black wins or is very likely to win. French is about maintaining white's pawn center. This is a very diminished pawn center, and as a result, black has much better chances and good spaces to attack with his pieces. This f2 diagonal looks vulnerable. This queen to b2 threat looks solid, and exactly right, Mario. That's exactly the right concept. I think d4 and black can just attack this like e5 pawn. The e5 pawn is pretty isolated here. The knight's on f3 and can't really move without losing the defense, which means the f2 pawn can never defend it. So, I think, I'm not sure if f6 is the right idea, but yeah. Yeah, right. So I think that's probably. I mean, without knowing, that's probably it, Mario. I'm thinking that opening the position, black. The engine figures that the position might get opened anyways, and in the situation in which the position opens, the white squared bishop for black is going to get more play. Let's see. Yeah. I mean, the real error in my mind is just, this is a really reductionist way of looking at the French. But like pawn takes c5, bishop takes c5, and the white center has voluntarily gotten disrupted. This just wasn't a good idea for white. Pawn takes c5 is almost never a good idea for white. So black's going to have lasting positional advantages in this game, and it's going to be difficult for him to not continue to have them. Hey, thank you very much for the follow, Pravilo. Knight to d4, queen c7, rook c1, queen takes e5, and this wins the pawn for black, and the structure is basically black is basically up here, and the position is good. The center is completely black's here. Black has a good outpost on e5. Black can put pressure on the c3 pawn, and is a pawn up as well. So this is almost a win for black. Rook c8, knight b4, rook c7, rook c8, and now this is really close to winning for black. Yeah, good stuff. Good game, Tarash. Good playing. Okay, so let's go back and look at this. I think white gave you a lot of chances. This is always bad for white. Pawn takes c5 is virtually always bad for white in the French. In terms of efficiency, the only change that I think I would make is bishop to b5 was not really much of an improvement. I think playing knight to c6. Yeah, sure. Let me. Sorry. It's chat's going fast, which is awesome. But let's see. White light squared bishop is the most important feature in white's position. Okay, cool. Yeah. Interesting, Tarash. That is an interesting idea. Yeah. I mean, I do know that the white squared bishop provides an important attacking resource on d3 into h7. I definitely think that's true. But I think that, basically with bishop to d3, bishop threatening h7. Okay, cool. Thanks, S-Park. You're in for tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, and you'll be at the end of that stream. Thanks, Spark. And also, just everybody, please keep sending games. Super interesting, super helpful stuff. Well. I mean, I wish I could keep up with the chat. I think that's more a reflection of me being slow than anything else. But I'm trying. Yeah, no, it's an interesting idea, Tarash. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, Spark. Thank you for sending it. It's in for tomorrow morning. So yeah. I guess my question here is, is this really a normal French? I guess I would say, is this a normal French situation? Having the bishop on d3, threatening h7. It's kind of, I understand. I understand the concept that the light squared bishop, is very powerful in the French. But my question is more at this point: is this still the French, right? I mean, when I think of French, I think of the pawn being on d4 and the center being solid. With pawn takes c5, I don't know if this opening is like clearly characterized as the French anymore. Like knight c6, queen c7, and you've gone from the point where you're trying to sort of trade pieces to the point where you're looking for pieces to attack the e5 pawn. Just thinking about it, Tarash. I don't know, but that's my, that's an idea here. And you know, and I'm sort of thinking on the I'm sort of thinking just off of the engine eval, maybe, you know, I don't know, but anyways, this is you know, this is basically this is good for black. So yeah, so maybe queen c7 here, knight b6, knight to c4. But black's got a good position. I mean, this trade is really the only thing that I can point to. I think otherwise you played an excellent game, Tarash, and you you know, you basically neutralized the white center, and when the center gets neutralized in the French, it's pretty much over. So yeah, good work. So as a takeaway from this game, I have one for players playing white against the French. Do not take c5. The importance of the center in the French is a really key point. You know, so holding these pawns on d4 and e5 in the French as white is really important. So pawn takes c5, bishop takes c5. You know, definitely leads to a better position for black. There's no real way around that. Bishop to b5 is interesting, and Tarash has explained the fundamental reason. But I'm just drawing on the threat of bishop e2, bishop takes e2, queen takes e2. This I think is pretty good for you know, this I think is pretty good for white relative to what could have happened. I think knight c6, queen c7 is the way I would go. Just exert pressure on the e5 pawn. f6 might need to be played. But this is really the only, you know, not just me, but this is the only move that the engine really has a problem with. Otherwise, I think it's really well played, and this e5 pawn hangs, and you know, threats on c3. Cool. And then black can just calmly win this game in a relatively simplified endgame position. So yeah, excellent game, Tarash. Thank you very much for sending it. Takeaway: white in a French should not play pawn takes c5, and then black, as a general concept, with the d4 pawn gone, should allocate resources as quickly as possible to the pawn on e5. In this particular case, the engine suggests, and I sort of agree, don't you know, don't spend too much time with anything else. Just get the attack mobilized on e5. And worry about the other stuff later. White's got a great position, better position than, or black's got a great position, better than white, and with pressure on e5 should be able to win that pawn and win material and win this game. So it is really interesting, very interesting game, and yeah, thank you very much for sending it, Tarash. Interesting concepts. All right, let's spend let's take a look at this. Here's another one from Reddit. Just want to load this. And here, it's an interesting position. I hope this successfully loads. If this doesn't successfully load, then I hope we're not out of luck on that. Okay, here we go. All right, this is a game from Reddit. This is I think the player here was so this was, I think the player here was white. Thank you very much for sending this game, and yeah, you can send it on the stream too, Leave. Sure. Yeah, I like that idea, Amet. I'll add it to list of ideas. I'm very, you know, I could definitely do a puzzle survival. I could also do puzzle battle. I like puzzle battle the most, but I I could do puzzle survival as well. Anyways, okay, here we go. E4, C5, knight F3, knight C6, open Sicilian. Awesome. So a few options here for white in this opening. Knight B5 is what I've seen the most frequently. I've also occasionally seen knight to B3. Yeah, but knight to F3 is playable, but not one of the preferred lines. Preferred is knight B5. But knight F3 is interesting. Knight F6, knight C3, bishop B4. Bishop D3 I think may be close to required. Queen A5, bishop D2, castles, D5, and here I basically think this is this should be good for white. This pawn's going to get somewhat isolated. The bishop pair has value here. As white here, I would play pawn takes D5 and neutralize this pretty quickly. Then I would play rook E1. But let's see what the engine says. So the engine also suggests pawn takes D5, and I was going to play rook E1 here. But the engine's got even better. So bishop takes H7, king takes H7, queen takes D5. Interesting. And I think this is how the game went, so excellent. Yeah, no, you can send the games in the chat. I also have this Discord. I'll just post the link to the chess.com Discord here, or the Discord, in case you guys want to send it. But really anything, if I see your game, it doesn't really matter where I see it. I'm just going to put it on my list and put it up for analysis. Games at this point are going to be, the games sent now are going to be sent for tomorrow afternoon at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, no, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Trosh. It was a really interesting game. I think you played really well. That was a very anti-positional move. Pawn takes C5, and I think it's not a playable one in the French. So interesting. Thank you for sending that one, Trosh. Interesting as always. But this is white's game here. So knight F3, knight F6, knight C3, bishop B4, bishop D3, queen A5. White can successfully deal with this threat. Bishop to D2, here castles, D5, and then the bishop on B4 trades for the knight on C3. Bishop threatens queen to C7, pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes H7, king takes, queen takes. White is in a good place here. He's up a pawn, I think, right? And the king side is open. So this is pretty solid. No doubt about it. So queen takes D5, F6, queen E4, king H8 or king G8, and basically white's gonna come up with attacks threatening on the king side. Awesome. Hey, thank you very much, Impacin and YouTube. Thank you both very much for the follows. Queen F7. Queen takes and rook takes. Tactical win for white. Great the way that this kind of came together. The engine here is suggesting queen to E4, but queen to F7 I think presses black to and with bishop to G4 queen takes and I think black or white is going to win this. Rook takes is not playable. The better move is rook takes D2. But I think then just queen takes G7, king takes G7, and white's up 2 pawns pretty much uncompensated. So that seems to work out pretty well. So in terms of improving this game for white, I think white played well. I think black basically was pretty aggressive in his early attacking. I want to just slow this down because I'm a little surprised that this is such a positive eval for black here. Bishop to B4, bishop to D3 or C4. The engine suggesting bishop to C4. Okay, so bishop to C4, castles, bishop takes, pawn takes, and then knight takes E4, I think. But basically, black has equalized. I think, you know, most of the quality that black is getting here is from the lack of mobility of this knight. This Sicilian, yeah, no, I think black was good there. So after e5, so e5 gets played, and then I think knight b5 is the better move. Here, you know, it's still closer to equality than I would think. And actually, it makes me wonder, what's the engine suggesting, if not knight to b5? I guess it's just really complicated. Knight to b5 is the book move. White plays knight f3 instead. Knight f3 shouldn't have any real problems, but maybe the lack of mobility for the knight is losing some points in terms of the engine. But knight c3, straightforward development. Basically, it's just white has traded his d pawn for black's c pawn. It's going to be some relatively normal Sicilian position. Black's going to put pressure on c3. I wonder if bishop d3 was not considered the best. The engine is pushing for bishop to c4. Castles, bishop takes, pawn takes. But what if knight takes here? Knight takes rook e1. Okay, so the engine plays c4 with the idea in mind of, yeah. Yeah, definitely a chess tuition stream, Pravilla. No doubt about it. Yeah, the engine is not too good at evaluating openings, but it is good. It's I mean, you know, it's a good general guideline. I trust it in openings sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I'm not giving it enough time to kind of set up its you know, to fully evaluate the positions, and that's part of the reason. Anyways, bishop c4 is the engine's best move here. Bishop d3 makes intuitive sense to me too, so I'm just going to ignore what the engine output says. Bishop to d2, castles, d5, a3, bishop takes, queen c7. And here, you know, basically, bishop takes, and I think it might not matter where white plays to. I guess queen d8 maintains the defense on the d5 square. That's important. So here, pawn takes d5, queen takes d5, and bishop takes h7 is no longer a threat. That's the advantage of queen d8 over queen c7 here. Black plays queen c7, which allows for a winning tactic for white. Pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes, king takes, queen takes d5. This threat is pretty solid for white against black. Queen d8 doesn't lead to the same situation. Queen d8, pawn takes d8, queen takes d8, and this threat doesn't work. So for that reason, I think queen d8 is an improvement on pawn takes d5. Or sorry, queen d8 is an improvement on queen c7, responding to pawn takes d5. Here, just following the game, white does exactly this tactic, and it works out great. So white is up 1.3. And then wins a piece when he plays queen f7. Great play for white. So I think in terms of improving for white, I think white played pretty solidly. The engine is advocating bishop c4 over bishop to d3. The opening book is still here. Bishop c4 is the number 1 line. Bishop d3 is the number 2 line. I think they're both fine. Don't see really any problems with either. D5, pawn takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop d2, and we're in a pretty safe, fairly simplified Sicilian position. Overall, this is pretty good, relatively equal. But interesting. This opening is surprisingly challenging for white. Black gets good counterplay here. This bishop to b4 move is solid. Doubling these pawns, you know, can really disrupt white's pawn structure. So I'm interested. This opening is interesting because it seems to be a pretty good one for black. And I think basically things go pretty well. I'm not sure if bishop takes c3 was a great idea. I don't know exactly what the difference in strategy here would have been. D5, pawn takes d5. This is, I mean, it's sort of tricky. I really don't feel like black has played that badly here. I feel like white has played well. So in terms of improving this game, knight b5 is the main line, probably slightly better objectively. And then black went sort of more all in on this queenside trade, bishops and knights, than I think he probably would have ideally. And then queen d8 is an improvement on queen c7, because after queen c7, pawn takes d5 wins a pawn. So this is better for white. Cool. Yeah, thank you very much for sending the game, Leave. I'm putting your game in, Leave, for tomorrow during the 6:05 p.m. stream. Awesome. All right, it's in. Your game will be reviewed tomorrow, May 4th, as the first reviewed game. I was going to open the lesson tomorrow with some opening theory, but then right after that, in tomorrow afternoon's lesson, you will be your game, Leave. So thank you very much for sending it. Did you send one too, Pravillo? Because I'm just is that one that you'd like reviewed on the stream, Pravillo? Because I can put that game that you just sent in, Pravillo, for tomorrow at 6:05 p.m. as well. Okay, cool. Yeah, so the errors here I think were basically queen c7 as opposed to awesome, Pravillo. All right, your game's gonna be tomorrow afternoon during the 6:05 p.m. Eastern stream. I hope that schedule works, and if it doesn't, it's all recorded, so you can always watch the record of the stream, and you can always watch on tape if the stream time's not the best for you. Thank you very much for sending it, Pravillo. Appreciate it. Super helpful to get plenty of material for the stream. But yeah, I don't think white's really done anything that was an issue here. There's two second most popular opening lines. First, this knight f3 versus knight b5. Black, I think, probably was hoping to get more out of this queenside attack, but I don't know if he had a great opportunity for improvement. Pawn takes d5 leads to a tactical win for white, and then queen f7 was an interesting play, which tried to force an error from black, which white got. So win for white. Good one. Okay, yeah, no worries, Mohammed. I think you played a great game. Just to be sure, you were playing white in this one, right? Or were you playing black? I mean, both sides played this. This is a solid game for both sides, for sure. Yeah, in terms of opening theory, it was really the only thing that I could point to. Otherwise, just excellent play from white. Actually, I'm sort of curious. I just want to see the eval on the accuracy, but I'm pretty sure this is an extremely accurate game. Thank you very much for the follow, Reckless. I appreciate it. So yeah, and then the two non-main lines played here. First, knight f3 for white. Second, bishop d3 for white over bishop c4. Both are completely fine. You know, the engine, they're not the most common opening moves, but played out great. Yeah, I mean, you really played this one accurately, Mohammed. It's a very solid game. I didn't really have much to add. Yeah, 93%. Pretty good. I guess you know, and all of the errors were after the game was basically decided. So, excellent game, Mohammed. I think during the parts before you were conclusively better, you played extremely well. So, yeah, good game, Mohammed. Interesting. I'm not so familiar with that knight f3 line after pawn takes d4. So, thank you very much for sending it, and I'll take a look at that e5 knight f3 line, because it's not one that I know super well. But thank you, thanks for sending it, Mohammed. All right, two more. We have one for Jack Silver as white. Let me just pull that up and load it. Right. Okay, so this is Jack Silver's game. Yeah, no, thank you very much for being here, Mario, and please keep sending games. Thanks so much for that. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us. All right. So this is Jack Silver's game. He plays Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit is declined, and then an early d5. So d5 is a playable move here. In general, should white play c takes d5, I think it's usually okay. It really depends on the situation. But here, it's not much worse, and it's the second most popular opening line. It's the Queen's Gambit declined exchange variation. Pawn takes d5, and then pawn takes d5. And then, the position's opened up a lot. White can play moves like bishop g5, bishop e7, e3, c6, bishop d3. And basically here, it's a Queen's Gambit declined game. Maybe more open than the average Queen's Gambit. White will do well if he can play d4 at a time when he's still successfully defending d4. But overall, yeah, pretty good. Let's take a look at this. White's got White's got a good eval here. Looks like a very safe position. And the bishops are relatively more important than they sometimes are in Queen's Gambit declined. Yeah, White's got a pretty good lead. And ultimately wins the queen. Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, so castling queenside was a huge blunder for black here. So I want to just look at the part of the game before that happens. But, yeah, great. And then you get you play well and win the game. Okay, awesome. Thanks Jack. And let's look. So d4, d5, exchange variation. The most common move here is knight f3. C takes d5 is the second most common, and bishop g5 is the third most common. C takes d5, e takes d5. If knight takes d5, then you can play e4 and transpose it into some weird Grunfeld that's going to be favorable to white. This is good for white. White will have a good center, and overall, on knight takes d5, e4 provides good chances for white. C takes d5, pawn takes d5. I don't know if it's the only gambit, but it is a gambit where it is better to decline. Queen's Gambit accepted is really rough, and usually black can't even maintain the c4 pawn. It's not one that I know super well, Pravilo. I'm an e4 player, so to be completely honest, the gambits that I'm the most familiar with are things like the Evans Gambit, and I guess the Evans Gambit is one of them. Elephant Gambit is another one that I run into occasionally. I guess Elephant's Gambit is kind of interesting. Where Elephant's Gambit is basically, I'm not sure if it's better to accept the Elephant's Gambit or decline the Elephant's Gambit. If you accept the Elephant Gambit, the position that you get as white is very restricted. It has a very set move order. But yeah, thank you very much, Leaf. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you on the stream tomorrow. So yeah, and thank you very much for the follow, Myriad. I really appreciate it. So yeah, so here, but it's a really good question. Thanks, Leaf. Jen and I were watching The Nightmare Before Christmas not too long ago. I really liked the Boogeyman. Okay. But yeah, The Nightmare Before Christmas is the most recent Christmas thing on my mind.
July.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah. But yeah, so e takes d5, bishop to g5, bishop to e7, and e3. So yeah, so basically here, white is better here. Black castles, or plays c6. But both sides have kind of a good amount of margin for error. There's not a tremendous amount of threatening things going on in this position. E3, c6, bishop d3, bnd7, queen c2, And white's got a very healthy development here. Black also has a pretty traditional healthy development here. Just a very equal game with more openings than normal. Here, castles, knight f3, rook e8, castles, knight f8, h3. We're in a good place. White is winning. I like this position. I'm just gonna keep. Yeah, I'm just gonna go through the game though. Queen c8 is kind of an awkward move. I think that's probably not the most efficient. And then yeah, and then you get this great queen winning thing. Okay, cool. So in terms of improvements here, Jack, it's an interesting game. C takes d5, interesting, less closed than the normal d4 game, which is probably sort of why, you know, the d4 player doesn't play this as frequently, because this position looks completely fine to me for white. But I generally think of d4 positions as being more oriented towards closed players, and c takes d5 exchange variation leads to a definitely something on the more open side of things as you know, as a response to 1d4. Bishop to g5, bishop to e7, e3, c6, bishop to d3, and here, you know, white's basically winning. Cool. So here's the move that that is sort of not normal here. Bishop to e6 is a 1% move. Knight d7 generally comes first. Castles, knight f3, and normal queen's gambit decline positions. Bishop d3, bn d7, queen c2, castles. Position is fine. White is up almost a pawn. So interesting. Yeah, again, I mean, I think white's played pretty solid. Like, you know, what strategic errors can I really point to? I mean, this development, you know, white's developing quickly. The pieces seem to be on pretty good squares. I don't know. I guess I'm gonna. You know, honestly, I feel like white played really well, and then black hung a queen. Let's see if the engine agrees and there are no errors here. Here. Yeah, I guess white's only real inaccuracy comes at the end of this game, or the end of the competitive part of this game. Bishop c7 is an interesting move. It's a response to h5. So I'm just gonna play the bishop to c7 because I was looking through this. I couldn't really find anything that seemed not that intuitive for white. But here, I think basically white gets an opportunity. So h5 here, and then queen c2 is the preferred move. And I'll show you why queen c2 is the preferred move. Queen c2 is actually a really dangerous move, now that I look at it. Queen c2 threatens bishop to f5. This is a pretty solid tactical play. So this is what white is playing for here. As a response, the only move that I really see for white is bishop to d6. I'm wondering knight b8, does that do anything? Knight b8 or knight d7 just sort of undeveloped pieces, so those are also bad. But the actual, the most playable move for black is actually bishop to d6. So white has an interesting problem here. So in this position, this is really the only, you played an excellent game, Jack, so I don't really think I have a huge amount to improve on. But this problem I think can be solved slightly better from a tactical standpoint. This bishop definitely needs to move, right? There's no, you know, there's no doubt that allowing h5 is bad. Bishop e5 looks sort of awkward. So let's say, like, you know, rook e1, h4, bishop e5. Still fine for white, really, but not, you know, exceptional. I think you can get this bishop, which is relatively not, which is not particularly strong, off of the board completely by playing queen to c2. Then bishop d6 is forced, you can play bishop to f5, and then you can play queen e7, bishop takes d6. And here I think white is like a pawn up. It's actually saying that you shouldn't play bishop takes d6, but that trades off your kind of restricted bishop for black's bishop. Your weaker squared bishop for black's stronger squared bishop. You know, this bishop is controlling that diagonal, so that is something that has value. I'm not sure the relative values of the two bishops, but that's certainly an exit strategy for this you know, for this bishop. Yeah, I mean, you played a great game. There's not much to improve on. I just want to get the full, like, you know, the full understanding of why this is bad. Because bishop c7 to me doesn't look, you know, it takes the bishop to somewhat of a misplaced diagonal, but I don't think it's too terrible. Bishop d6, pawn takes b6, pawn takes b6. This looks fine, honestly. White's up a pawn and getting attacked. I mean, tactical resources will need to get played on the king side, but it'll be fine here. Okay, bishop e6, queen b3, queen c8, knight e2, knight d7, knight f4, and here, yeah, it's just good play. I don't know what to tell you. You made 16 excellent moves in this game. Bishop c7, I guess, isn't as good as bishop to e5 immediately. Hey, thank you very much for the for the follow, Esty. Thank you very much for joining the stream. So yeah, so bishop to e5 I think is probably the best. Queen c2 makes this crazy threat, but the threat is going to end up being, so say here, bishop d6 is forced, so forcing a move is definitely good. Bishop to f5, queen to e7, and then, you know, and then I guess the value of this is on h4, you can play bishop takes d6. So that's why this strategy is better. This is the only suggestion that the engine even has for you, Jack, so you've played an excellent game. But here, queen to h5 and then queen to h2, making this threat to win the queen, forces bishop to d6, or a knight move, but basically bishop to d6. Then bishop plays to f5, putting it on a good diagonal. The queen goes back to e7, and then the bishop, you know, the bishop you can leave alone and make developing moves like rook e1 with e4 in mind. And then if h4 gets played, you can exit that with bishop takes d6, and you'll be in pretty good shape as white. That was the logic behind all of that. It took me a long time to sort of understand that, but yeah, or I guess rook a1 is better. No, Reckless, you can just send him. I mean, no, definitely not a sub. For sure. No, feel free to send a game. Yeah, no, you know, honestly, like, my goal is just to give completely free lessons. Like, I want lessons to be free and available. Like, definitely, you know, don't even feel pressured to get a subscription, to be honest. I mean, you know, I have no interest in making money from this. So definitely, don't feel pressured to subscribe. You can follow if you want, but I never want you to feel pressured to spend any money on this. I don't want to make any money on this. This is just something I want to do because I feel like chess lessons should be free and available to everyone. So anyways, please feel free to send a game either on the Discord or on this chat, Reckless. And at this point, if you send the game right now, it'll be reviewed tomorrow at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, thank you very much for joining, Reckless. I appreciate it. So yeah. So anyways, the only move that even the engine finds a problem with in your game, but really though, yes, Pravilo, please don't feel any pressure to subscribe. Following is supportive enough, and I don't want you to spend any money on this because I don't think that's I think my goal is to make these lessons free. Okay, cool. Yeah, Myriad in for your game. Myriad is in for tomorrow at 6 p.m. 6:05 p.m. Eastern time. And if that schedule's, I hope that schedule is convenient. But if it's not, then that game will be available on review for until at least 14 days from now. But I'm hopefully gonna make it so they stay up forever. Yeah, it's always gonna be available video on demand, Myriad. For at least 14 days until I find a better solution that makes it up there, makes it available forever. But yeah, thank you very much, Myriad. Thank you for sending the game, and it's super helpful to have a lot of good games to work with and to show on the stream. But yeah, the only improvement here in your entire game up until the point that it's decided here was Bishop c7 was considered to be somewhat inefficient. The better strategy was the more tactically involved one. Queen to c2, threatening bishop to f5. Bishop to d6 is practically forced. Bishop to f5 gets played. Queen e7 gets played, and then you don't need to take bishop to d6. You either let black play bishop takes g3 and take with the h pawn, or you move like rook a e1, threatening e4. And then if you face h4, then you take the bishop on d6. But overall, excellently played game. I can't find too much in the way of improvements. The engine can't find too much in the way of improvements. I think you can just feel good about the 16 moves you played there, and the queen that you ended up winning relatively early in the game. Anyways, excellent. Good point, Kiro. I started a YouTube yesterday, and I'm working on trying to get it so that all of my streams are automatically uploaded to YouTube. I'll probably put in some time today trying to learn the technicals of that. I don't know it super well, so yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. No, definitely encourage you to watch video on demand. We'll go over your game either way. I mean, I really just want lessons to be free, so I don't really, I appreciate everyone's here live, and if you're here live, then I can do more to guide the, or you can help guide the analysis, but either way, I'm going to analyze it, and it'll be up there on video on demand. Yeah, the Twitch video on demand. As soon as the lecture ends, it goes straight onto video on demand, and it's there for 14 days. Although I'm trying to make it so it's up there forever. That's my goal. Anyways, yeah, no, thank you for sending it, Myriad. It's really helpful for everyone to send games. Never feel afraid to send games. If you send games, we're definitely going to look at them within a few days of when you send them. But yeah, thanks, Myriad. It'll be 6:05 p.m. Eastern live, but will be available video on demand after that. All right, last game of today. Today's been a long run, but there are a bunch of interesting things, so I wanted to spend time on them. It's always good when it runs extra. It means I was interested in what was going on. All right. Oh wait, actually, did I mess this up? I messed this up. Okay, we're done with games for today. I miscounted my games and I put one twice. So Jack Silver, excellent game. I thought I was gonna do one more, but I do actually really like doing this, to be honest. This makes me really happy, and I hope it's helpful. And I learn a ton of stuff. I learned so much stuff from teaching this stuff. It's crazy. There's so many opening lines that I didn't know before I did this. Yeah. Okay, how about this? We'll do one puzzle battle. I'll do a puzzle battle on stream, just because I'm not good with Puzzle Storm, but I will do puzzle battle. Okay, cool. We'll close on a puzzle battle for today, Myriad. It goes pretty quick, but okay, cool. What's your screen name? Yeah, I got it. Okay, cool. I will challenge you right now. Awesome. All right, cool. So I'll play this puzzle battle, and then we'll call it for the day, okay? Yeah, this will be fun. It's been a while since I played on stream, to be honest. Yep. These are interesting. Yeah, super long time since I've actually. Now I'm like, it's like changing gears for me, to be completely honest. This is interesting. If I start playing positional moves, I'll know I'm really still in lesson mode. Well, he's ahead of me, so, you know. Some interesting tactics. If you're stuck at 1200 at puzzles and just can't go... Yes, just practice more. You will improve, Fravilo. If you put the time in, if you do this for an hour a day for a month, I guarantee you will not be stuck. You will improve. It's I think the best way to improve as a club player. Awesome. I'll keep going. Let's see. Good game. No, good game, Myriad. It's been a super long time since I've played on stream, to be honest. It's fun. It's fun to do though, for sure. So thank you guys for thinking of the idea. Let's see. I don't know. Oh, I missed that one. I'm trying. I don't know. Let's see. I don't see this one. Hold on. I'm like, what is this? E5?
Knight to E4.
Don't see it. This is okay. I see it. All right, cool. And I would have trapped with E5 on the next move. I guess was the point of that one. It was interesting. Yeah, that one took a second. Yeah, I missed that one. All right, whatever. Anyways, it's been a super long time since I did that. Thank you for coming up with that idea. I definitely want this to be a lesson stream and not a playing stream, but it is fun. Just since we got a free minute because I thought I had one more game. But yeah, thank you all. No, thank you very much for coming, Spark, and please, yeah, very happy to have you here. And we do these streams every day at 10 a.m. Eastern and 6:05 p.m. Eastern. And I really appreciate all you guys being there. Thank you guys very much for the game. Thanks for the game, Myriad, and thank you all very much here for sending games. No, I got a little bit lucky, and there were one or two where I wasn't sure that I got them. So, anyways, thank you all very much for the stream. Thank you for being here, and I will be back at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. Everybody have a good day, and thank you all very much for being here. I appreciate it. Have a good day. Bye.